Hello everyone, let's talk about antecedent interventions and group contingencies. We already talked about and learned about these antecedent variables. So SD evokes certain behaviors like problem behaviors or appropriate behaviors. And then MO can increase current frequency of behavior when an effective reinforcer is not available. Therefore, knowing antecedent-based intervention strategies will help you better treat your students' problem behavior in your classroom. Applied behavior analysis have used several antecedent interventions to decrease the effectiveness of reinforcers that maintain problem behaviors, which is abolishing operations. However, remember that the effects of MOs are temporary, so antecedent intervention by themselves will not produce a permanent improvements in behavior. So, antecedent interventions most often serve as one component of a treatment package. So, like combining antecedent intervention with extinction, differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, or other procedures. So these kinds of treatments may produce maintaining effects. The examples of antecedent intervention include these: NCR, non-contingent reinforcement, high P request sequence, and FCT. So we will talk about these three examples of antecedent intervention today. Non-contingent reinforcement is an antecedent intervention in which stimuli with known reinforcing properties are delivered on a fixed time ft or a variable time vt schedule independent of the learner's behaviors. In other words, non-contingent reinforcement may effectively diminish problem behaviors because the reinforcer that maintain the problem behavior are available freely and frequently, regardless of whether the student has demonstrated a behavior or not. This enriched environment with positive stimuli may function as an abolishing operation AO, reducing the motivation to engage in the problem behavior. NCR uses three distinct procedures that identify and deliver stimuli with known reinforcing properties. The first one is positive reinforcement, the second one is negative reinforcement, and the third one is automatic reinforcement. NCR provides an important and effective intervention for problem behaviors, and it is very common treatment for people with developmental disability. Let's take a look at the example. These researchers provided an excellent example of applying NCR with positive reinforcement. From a functional analysis, the researcher figured out that social positive reinforcement maintained self-injurious behavior or aggression in 3 adults with developmental disabilities. So they use NCR, so the adults with developmental disability received attention or small bits of food on FT, the fixed time schedule, like 5 seconds. Later, the researcher thinned the schedule, so the schedule was thinned to a terminal criterion of 300 seconds. And the researcher figured out that NCR procedure effectively decreased the occurrences of self-injurious behavior and aggression. Now let's talk about high probability request sequence, also known as high P request sequence. When using a high P request sequence, the teacher presents a series of easy-to-follow requests for which the participant has a history of compliance, which is high P request. When the learner complies with several such high P requests in sequence, the teacher immediately gives the target request, which is low P. The behavioral effects of the high P request sequence suggest the evasive effects of an AO by reducing the value of reinforcement for non-compliance to the low P requests, such as reducing the value of escape from requests and reducing the aggression and self-injury often associated with low P requests. To apply the high P request sequence, the teacher or therapist selects 2 to 5 short tasks with which the learner has a history of compliance. These short tasks provide the responses for the high P request. The teacher or therapist presents the high P request sequence immediately before requesting the target task, which is a low P request. As many of you already know, this intervention is also called behavior momentum. Now, functional communication training, FCT. FCT establishes an appropriate communicative behavior to compete with problem behaviors evoked by an establishing operation, EO. Rather than changing EOs, functional communication training develops alternative behaviors that are sensitive to the EOs. This is in contrast to the non-contingent reinforcement and high P request sequence interventions that alter the effects of EOs. FCT is an application of differential reinforcement of alternative behavior DRA because the intervention develops an alternative communicative response as an antecedent to diminish the problem behavior. Now, let's watch a short video clip that demonstrates the use of FCT.
It's always important to assess the function of a behavior so that we can develop an intervention plan that makes sense. Many inappropriate behaviors may serve the function of an escape or an avoidance to a work demand. Escape extinction is the process of withholding access to the reinforcer following an inappropriate response. It's important to remember that many different types of behaviors can surface when trying to avoid a task. Examples of the behavior can range from crying, tantruming, throwing the work materials. In order to make sure the responses do not occur in the future, we must follow through. Following through, such as providing full prompts, withholding access to the reinforcer, or not allowing departure from a workspace, are important strategies to utilize.
Functional communication training is utilized to teach an individual to use an appropriate response or appropriate language to access items they need or desire instead of using problem behavior to access these items. Examples of functional communication responses are, I need a break, I need help, or 1 more minute, please. Please watch the following video of a student's problem behavior during a work task.
All right, Duncan, right now we're going to practice tracing our name, and then you're going to write your name on the lines. Here you go. Now, Duncan, we don't throw our paper. We need to try again. Now, trace your name. Oh. You ripped it. Now we can't do it anymore. Here, you can look at a book. Nice. This was an example of a successful escape response from the student. He ripped the paper and was able to escape the task that was presented. Further, he was able to perform an easier task. Over time, the child may learn that this response of throwing or ripping is successful and use these behaviors more frequently. In these cases, we must follow through with our task to ensure that the child does not control or modify the original demand. Watch as a communication response is prompted, used correctly, and reinforced in this video. All right, Duncan, we're going to do our work now and we're going to trace our paper. Remember, If you need a break, you can say, I need a break, please.
I need a break, please.
Okay, you can have a break with the book. Nice asking for a break. Look at the book for a minute. Yeah, that's good, yeah. All right, we're going to try to do our work now. Okay, let's trace our sheet. Can you trace it for me? That's very good tracing. You're doing such a great job. Wow. This is successful prompting of a functional communication response. Note the prompt of the appropriate response. Remember, if you need a break, you can say, I need a break, please.
I need a break, please.
Okay, you can have a break with the book. Nice asking for a break. Note the immediate removal of the aversive stimulus and the delivery of a neutral activity. Yeah, that's good, yeah. All right, we're going to try to do our work now. Okay, let's trace our sheet. Can you trace it for me? You see that the instructor presents the task and reminds the child of the demand. He also then assists with a prompt to help elicit a positive response. Make sure to always follow through when presenting work demands. This way, the child's escape and avoidance responses do not become successful, and this will not continue in the future. Make sure to teach the child how to use their words when needing help or a break from work. Prompting them after presenting the demand is a great way to elicit a positive response. It's also very important to remember that new, difficult, or activities with long durations could elicit some escape-maintained behaviors. It's important to provide prompting when beginning to teach a skill. This decreases frustration and thus lessens the need to escape the task. In addition, it's important to start out with small amounts of work and slowly increase over time. It is our job as teachers to teach communication strategies that replace these negative behaviors that may use to escape. It is very important to know your client so that beforehand you can modify tasks, as once you present the demand, you must follow through.
Let's move on to chapter 26. Now we will talk about group contingencies. A group contingency is one in which a common consequence, usually but not necessarily a reward intended to function as reinforcement, is contingent on the behavior of one member of the group, the behavior of part of the group, or the behavior of everyone in the group. Group contingencies can be classified as dependent, independent, or interdependent. Independent group contingency is an arrangement in which a contingency is presented to all members of a group, but reinforcement is delivered only to those group members who meet the criterion outlined in the contingency. So independent group contingencies are frequently combined with contingency contracting, like behavior contracting, and token reinforcement programs, because these programs usually establish reinforcement schedules independent of the performance of other members of the group. So easy example here. Each student who finishes his research project on time will receive a dog ate my homework pass. The second one is dependent group contingency, also known as hero procedure. So under a dependent group contingency, the reward for the whole group is dependent on the performance of an individual student or small group. So as you see this example, if a student who turns to the classroom from the in-school suspension room has a good day, all students will get to drop their lowest daily classwork grade. The number 3 is interdependent group contingency. An interdependent group contingency is one in which all members of a group must meet the criterion of the contingency individually and as a group before any member earns the reward. So as you see the example, if everyone remembers to bring his math books to class for 4 consecutive days, everyone in the group will not be assigned homework for the 5th day of class. So everyone in the group has responsibility. Many researchers highlighted that group contingencies, if properly managed, can be an effective and practical approach to changing the behavior of many people simultaneously.